It is a good day to be a Miami Dolphins fan. The news that we've all been waiting for and needing on tight end Darren Waller has finally arrived. And I think most of you know what that news already is, but he has officially been activated off of the PUP list and he can return to practice. If you did not know, if you were not activated off the PUP list, you will miss at least the first 4 games. That is not a concern. It was always said he would be ready for week 1, and that is ultimately the case. He was finally able to get to the practice field on Wednesday afternoon ahead of the final public practice in the only joint practice with the Jacksonville Jaguars this upcoming Thursday. Now, we'll talk more about how Waller was participating in practice here in a second, but it's about time. The player that they acquired a month ago in the trade with the Giants is finally able to start building a chemistry and a rapport with Tua in this Dolphins offense. And before we break down more around the Miami Dolphins, help us out by spreading the word of Dolphins Today. Share the video, whether it is via text to your friends, family members, coworkers, on social media, on Twitter, Facebook. If you do go on social media, just tag me at Nic_Rohloff on Twitter, and I'll give you a like and retweet. All right, talking more about Darren Waller, it's about time. I have been screaming from the rooftops about how I need to see him on the football field. And I didn't want to be a pessimist, but I just fully anticipate Waller not being as productive as I would probably want him to be because of the fact he didn't play football last season. He was retired, and then he just was on the PUP list for so long and so long. It was starting to be a concern for me, but it's good to finally see him activated off of the list and at Dolphins practice. Now, there was a little bit of a weird situation at practice today. Waller, after being seen at the stretching period, left practice, but did eventually return. Now, it was also reported that he did not participate in 11-on-11 in team drills. He was watching, taking mental reps. We'll see if Darren Waller is more involved in 11-on-11s or 1-on-1s or 7-on-7s tomorrow in the joint practice with Jacksonville. It's arguably the thing that I am most looking forward to see. Is Waller activated? Is he integrated into the offense? And how productive could he possibly be? And it was good to see him at practice. It's also good to see Matthew Judon at his first Dolphins practice. So you see Waller stretching there in pads for the first time, Judon participating in his first Dolphins practice, donning the orange sleeves. Another reason why you should follow me over on Twitter. I posted this photo and another photo from Judon at practice earlier today as well. And let's transition into speaking on the newest Dolphins edge. Matthew Judon was an absolute menace at practice today for Miami, and it was surprising to see him signed off of the streets and immediately put into the action of 11-on-11 with pads, rushing after the quarterbacks. Usually you might see a ramp-up practice. No, not for Judon. He's right away getting into it. And I mentioned he was a menace out there. He was good in the run game. He also had back-to-back plays where he would have picked up sacks. David Furones with the update saying that he's been killing it off of the edge. Back-to-back sacks would have been strip sack on Wilson, sack Zach Wilson the play prior. Judon is going to be a difference maker for the Miami Dolphins. Last season had his worst season in the last 4 or 5 years of his career with the Atlanta Falcons. He believes that he is going to be better this season, especially since he's able to work as almost a rotation guy rather than be the guy at this age of his career, which he was dependent on being last season in Atlanta. Him being behind Chop, Jalen Phillips, and Bradley Chubb in the depth chart and working alongside them will provide dividends and keep all of them fresh throughout the course of this 17-game season. And Judon spoke to Dolphins reporters for the first time after practice, and it fired me up. I can't lie. He said that I'm here to work. It's not about coming down here to South Florida and relaxing. That makes me excited, man. A lot of players might want to sign with the Dolphins late in their career if they can't get a job elsewhere to collect a paycheck, live in a beautiful city that Miami is, and just kind of lollygag through the season. I felt as if Jordan Poyer did that last year for Miami. I do not think Matthew Judon will do the same thing. His work ethic and the career production and everything that he's built says he is the opposite of that, coming from a D2 school to where he is as one of the premier pass rushers in the NFL 3 or 4 years ago. But him kind of like laying the groundwork that, hey, I'm here to work, I'm here to be productive, I'm not here to just mess around, made me very excited. So, are you excited about the newest Dolphins edge rusher, Matthew Judon? I've grown very excited. I know I said I wanted a cornerback more, but I can't deny I think Judon's going to be a very solid addition for this team. And with him wearing Javon Holland's old number 8, I hope he puts it to better use than Javon did last season. Spam that jersey number down in the comment section. Let's segue to other Dolphins injury news. We talked about Darren Waller. There are a couple positive updates that I really want to highlight right now. Starting with these two. We mentioned it on yesterday's news update that Alec, Ingold, and Mohamed Kamara were at Dolphins practice for the first time in a week or 2 weeks, but they were in non-contact red jerseys. That was no longer the case today. They were in the non-contact jerseys yesterday. They were in pads and ready to roll today. Alec, Ingold, and Kamara were both in concussion protocol. Both have cleared concussion protocol, back at practice, and will be ready to roll for joint practice tomorrow against the Jags, as well as the preseason finale on Saturday. And that is more important for Mohamed Kamara rather than Alec Ingold. We know Ingold is a starter in his specific role for Miami. Kamara is on the outside looking in of this Dolphins bubble, especially at the edge position, after the Judon addition and seeing Grayson Murphy, Quentin Bell, and Derek McClendon put together really strong camps to this point. Kamara is going to need a very strong finish to this week to have a chance to make the 53-man roster. But as it currently stands, the 5th-round pick from a year ago is more likely to be on the practice squad or a different NFL team than the Dolphins' 53-man group. Ashtyn Davis, the safety Miami signed in NFL free agency from the New York Jets, who got a lower body injury 2 or 3 weeks ago. McDaniel says it wasn't a serious injury to where it's going to miss a lot of time, but is not done for the season. A positive update on the safety from New York, originally drafted from Cal. He was at practice today on the side for the first time in a while, and he is out of the walking boot on his foot that he has been wearing, which signifies his rehab is probably going as well or better than expected, and his return to this Dolphins football team could be sooner than expected. I truly believe that Davis was going to start the year on IR, and maybe that is still the case. Remember, you get 2 players that start the season IR that don't have to be carried onto the 53-man roster, that have to just miss a minimum of 4 weeks. Maybe that is the case. Maybe there's a chance he does not start on IR. We still are 2.5 weeks away from the first game of the season. If the Dolphins believe he could return in week 2 or week 3, which is still a month, 5 weeks out from the current spot we are in now, maybe he doesn't have to go on IR because that would be massive. I have projected that Ashtyn Davis would have been the starting safety alongside Minkah Fitzpatrick to start the year. It likely is going to be Iafatu Melifonwu with Elijah Campbell being that third safety. But if Davis is not on IR to start the year, he could return sooner rather than later and reclaim that starting role alongside Minkah. Or just return and be a solid third safety in rotation, moving Elijah Campbell down the depth chart into his role of fourth safety and special teams ace. They signed Davis for a reason. I think he was having a stronger offseason than Melifonwu. So if he's able to get back to the field for Miami quickly, that would be absolutely awesome. Another update on an injury. Andrew Meyer, who was having arguably the best training camp in preseason before his injury out of any depth piece on the offensive line, was seen at practice with a brace on his left elbow. McDaniel said that he would be out weeks and could start the year on IR as well. Another type of player like Ashtyn Davis, which could be on the IR through the first 4 weeks of the season, but not miss the entire year because he's starting on IR. We'll see what happens, but McDaniel said he was having the best camp out of almost any preseason or guy on the offensive line. Was not going to start, but was in line to be the top interior offensive lineman depth piece. Now that goes to Daniel Brunskill, but maybe Meyer could be back sooner rather than later. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And coming up in just 1 second, we're going to look at some more Dolphins practice notes. We'll transition from the injury news to what happened at practice today, and I think some Dolphins fans will be happy about a new development in the secondary. But we do have to tell you about the sponsor of this edition of Dolphins Today, and that is Prize Picks. And I'm so happy Prize Picks is back for the football season, preseason football. College football is on the horizon. First week of the season is almost here as well, where you can get on the action for your favorite players like Saquon, Burrow, Tua, Achane, Waddle. You can play in so many different ways, season long, daily, pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. You can play in so many different ways. Like I said, I already have an entry for the first week of the year. More than Dak Prescott. Take advantage of that discount, half a passing yard, pairing that up with Joe Flacco, more than passing yards against that terrible Bengals defense, and more than Demario Douglas receiving yards. I think he's going to play really well in the slot for that Josh McDaniels Patriots offense week 1. Join me and the millions of others today. Download the Prize Picks app and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Links in the description and comments of today's video. Shout out to Prize Picks. Run your game. We have a major development right now going on in the secondary. Dolphins 5th-round rookie Jason Marshall Jr. is rising up the Dolphins depth chart. And Ruski, my guy, will certainly like this portion of the video, and he's already razzing me over on Twitter. If you are not aware, I was very critical of the draft pick Miami made in the 5th round because I preferred some other corners at the time, one specifically being Dorian Strong of Virginia Tech, and I did not think Marshall Jr. was worth the pick there. But hey, he has certainly improved throughout the entire offseason and in the preseason to this point. And Omar Kelly and other Dolphins reporters have noted that Marshall Jr. is kind of being moved to the nickel/slot. Now, this might be indicative because of the Kader Kohou season-ending injury, but Marshall Jr. played primarily on the outside at college level for Florida. But Kelly noted that this could be a full-time move for Marshall Jr. into the slot. And Travis Wingfield had a note on it as well. He said that the emergence of Jason Marshall Jr. as the nickel last week is exactly why I love camp in the preseason. That almost none of it in college, takes a crack at it, and shows immediate bite. Anthony Weaver and Minkah Fitzpatrick both praised the job he did last week. And rewatching the tape, the physicality and press, the rerouting collision guys in the 5-yard window, his speed around the edge and ability to flatten as a blitzer or run fitter looked to me like he did his job in terms of coverage rules. It all looked the part, something to track the rest of the month. And at practice today, Jason Marshall Jr. got a ton of reps on the first team secondary in the nickel. He made an extremely good play defending Jalen Waddle in the slot, forcing a pass breakup in the red zone. Marshall Jr. has continuously improved this training camp, July and August, and if he's able to develop into a relatively productive and impactful player in the first half of the season as a rookie, that would just be a massive development for a secondary that I believe is the worst in football. Would it be elevated out of that worst spot if Marshall Jr. is a impactful guy? It certainly would. But I'm not really thinking too much of it right now. It's just something that I want Dolphins fans to monitor. If he's able to put together a strong week against the Jags pass catchers on Thursday and then a strong final preseason game on Saturday night, we can be talking about Jason Marshall Jr. as a 3rd or 4th corner on this Dolphins depth chart. And we're going to look at this Dolphins depth chart in a second. But I want to shout out to all the real ones. We just crossed 72K subscribers earlier today. Thank you for everyone who has recently joined the channel and already been subscribed. We are putting out daily Dolphins coverage as well as weekly live shows on Tuesdays and live shows for every Dolphins game. Next one coming up this Saturday evening. So subscribe for more live shows and Dolphins updates on the daily. Looking at this Dolphins depth chart, the avenue for Jason Marshall Jr. to be moving up is right there. Storm Duck is your CB1, and then Mike Hilton. Could he be the backup nickel? Is he still the starter? Maybe he moves to outside corner. You have Jack Jones playing well. Ethan Bonner's out for a couple weeks due to a hamstring injury. There's just a lot of opportunity for upwards movement for Jason Marshall Jr., And based off what I've seen over the past week or so, I think Kendall Sheffield, despite being labeled as a starter in the first unofficial depth chart put out by Miami before the first preseason game, he's sliding. And he was actually banged up and absent from Dolphins practice today. And if I am projecting the top 4 corners on Miami right now, I think my starters would still be the starters I said should be the starters 2 weeks ago. Storm Duck and Jack Jones on the outside, Mike Hilton on the inside as that nickel, with Jason Marshall Jr. as the versatile 4th corner, where he can play in the nickel in some packages if Mike Hilton struggles or goes down. Or if Duck or Jones struggle, you can move Hilton to the outside, Jason Marshall Jr. on the inside. Or keep Hilton on the inside, Jason Marshall Jr. on the outside. If you are projecting the top 4 corners for this Dolphins football team with about a couple weeks to go until week 1, I think those are your top 4. Probably would have either Cam Smith or Kendall Sheffield at CB 5 and 6, with Ethan Bonner being banged up. And I do want to briefly shout out Jack Jones, who I think has had a very strong camp after being signed in the first week. He started off hot, making plays, but then against the Lions in joint practice, he was burnt toast, getting killed by Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think Jack Jones is growing up in terms of his maturity. That is something he has struggled with in the first couple of years of his career. He was talking to Dolphins reporters after practice today and admitted that Amon-Ra St. Brown absolutely fried him last week. Said, you can go look at the tape. He cooked me. But he said it made him a better corner, gave him ability to learn, and that the Dolphins scheme and system is a little bit different that he's adjusting to. It's much more press. Jack Jones says he's an off-ball corner that reads the keys of the quarterback and the schemes of the offense and tries to jump routes. He's a ball hawker. It makes him viable to getting beat on double moves and deep shots. Well, Jack Jones is having to play the position a little bit differently now, and he's continuing to get better at it day after day. I'm having a hard time justifying starting another player on the boundary week 1 against the Colts outside of Storm Duck, and if it's not Jack Jones. So I expect him to be a starter, and I like his growing up mentality. Final note on today's show, defensive line absolutely dominated. You saw the quick report from Matthew Judon. Jalen Phillips was disruptive today. Chop Robinson and Bradley Chubb made some plays as well. I think the Dolphins, without a question, have the best 4 edge rushers as a unit in the NFL. I know there are some good ones out there. The Giants with Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau. But I'm sorry. I'm taking Chop, Phillips, Chubb, and Judon over any other 4-man unit at edge rusher in the NFL. And you know what? I'll go as far as say the 6-man defensive front for Miami is the best. I know the Giants are thought of as the best when you include Dexter Lawrence into that group. Heck, the 4 edge rushers I talked about, Kenneth Grant, Zach Sealer. I don't think there's another 6-man rotation up front better than that. I'll take it over the Eagles. I'll take it over the Giants. And this is why I feel as if Miami's defense could be better than I anticipate and better than what other people anticipate. We know the secondary's got major questions. But if that front 4, that front 7 is as dominant as I think it could be, we might not have to be worried about the secondary holding up because opposing quarterbacks might barely have 2.3 seconds to throw the football. I can't wait to see this team line up and play real football in September and October. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if you want more Miami Dolphins updates, make sure you follow me over on Twitter because I'm tweeting on the daily at Nic_Rohloff is the handle. So give me a follow right now. And I'll see you with another video tomorrow. Go Fins.